Let's talk money.
I don't have your money.
I know I'd be a lot happier with some extra cash.
Is this about money?
Obviously, this is all about money.
Oh, man, we got bills to pay, buddy.
With practical tips and a focus on scripture, let's talk money. With Dave and Reb. From More Than Enough. Real conversations about money for real people. Let's talk money.
Are you ready to talk money, Reb?
I am ready to talk money.
You think people are getting tired of me saying that right off the get-go?
No, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's our little tag thing that we do. No, before you do that today, don't go anywhere because we want you to think about what would happen in the very difficult case of you losing your spouse. If you have a partner and you're going to lose your spouse, how well do you know your financial situation? How well do you know what assets you have, your investments? But how well do you know how to pay bills even? Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about that with our guest today.
Great. And before we get to our guest, I want to thank the guest right away because Trinity Family Wealth is sponsoring today's show. And Tim, you are our guest. So thank you for sponsoring today's show. Trinity Family Wealth is I'm going to say a boutique. Can I say that?
Sure. We are
boutique financial wealth investment. So if you've got wealth that you want to manage well, and this is what I love about Tim, and you probably, if you've been listening to the show and you've heard Tim sponsor a couple of shows, I love that you look at wealth from a generational perspective. And I love that it's not just managing how much can I get to the end of my life or my spouse's life, but that you guys have an eye towards how can that wealth have an impact generationally. So thank you, Tim, again for that. Welcome. Okay, I have a little question, Reb. You left the hook there. You know, how well do as a spouse? So are we not talking to the single people or the people that are?
I don't want the single people not to listen.
Okay.
Because a single person could very well end up with a spouse. But I mean, maybe there are single people who don't know their own finances, which is a funny thing, but it actually happens. But in this show specifically, we want to speak to couples who are not aware. One's aware and the other is not of what's happening. And we've had stories on this show and we run across them regularly where couples come and one does the finances and the other one is unaware. And when when the one dies, it is hard because you're grieving and then you're thrown into a situation where you have to manage money for the first time in your life. You don't know how to get into your checking account. You might not know passwords, of that stuff.
And that's extreme. And that's kind of why I wanted to go back to that.
Okay, so I'm going extreme, but it happens.
It absolutely does. But I also see couples where life event happens, a spouse gets hurt.
Yes.
And all of a sudden now I'm not only caring for my spouse, but I have to care for the finances. And I've never done that before. Or in the case of a separation where there's the event, but when the separation happens, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, what do I do now? So, it's not just in the event of that extreme death we're talking. We're talking about something that happens in a couple's life where all of a sudden one couple isn't available to be able to say, I managed all the finances and I was unaware of all the finances, and we're wanting to connect that.
And we've invited Tim to come talk about that, partially because I read a blog on his website, which I'll post in the show notes, about this topic, because this is a concern of yours.
Totally.
Yeah. And why is this important? Why are we talking about this today?
Yeah. So this would be probably my biggest fear, that because we're looking at end of life in a estate situation, we always think, okay, I'm going to live to 90 years old and whatever. But that necessarily doesn't happen. What's interesting, if you look at statistically, the average widow, and the audience here the listener can think, okay, what's the average age of a widow in Canada today? Think about that number, and I'm going to tell you what it is. The number's 56. Ooh. That's staggering.
That's me.
56 is like, that is young. I thought I had
I'm going
30
to see
more
Jesus.
years.
Don't go anywhere.
Now for men, for a widower, the average is 65. That's just the average retirement age for most people. Most people think we've got till 90 or more. That's not the average. That means half are longer, half are younger than that. Are we prepared? Reb, you mentioned off the get-go that listener about, does that bring stress to you, if I was going to be on my own? If that brought stress, then that's the litmus test. Most people, I shouldn't say most, here's most couples that we see. One has an interest or a willingness to work in the financial space. The other one is in other spaces. That's normal. That's the way we're wired. And as a partnership, that can work well. But what we need to see is both spouses involved. Does that mean both know it intimately? No. But they have to have a working knowledge so that if one of them isn't there for some reason, the other spouse can move forward. Because if they don't, the results are tragic. And unfortunately, we get exposed to this. Personally, I'm fortunate to not have gone through this, but we've walked with clients on two scenarios. One's the clients that have come to us have worked with us. And as a couple, we want to meet them together. That's our process. We want you both at the table. Why? To build a relationship with the team that's going to serve you, to have a level of communication between the two spouses in terms of the decisions they're making, why they're making the decisions, to have the same information and education through the process, and to have that experience to say, yeah, 5 years ago, we did this because of that. Oh, I have this insurance in place, or we have this financial plan, and this is what we're working towards. Again, not to be a guru on that. That's why you've got a team around you, and you've got one partner that's maybe the lead on that. But then so when we've been with a client and we've walked through that tragedy, it is a tragedy. It's a life-changing situation, obviously, however you lose that spouse. And it is so difficult to go through that. We only get a glimpse of it walking and grieving alongside that client, but at least they have a relationship with us that's not starting new. They know that there's a plan. They know that they're going to be okay because we planned for the unfortunate event if it were to happen. Everything's in place, so nothing is new, and yet it is so difficult. We've also been on the other end of the situation where all of a sudden we find somebody in that situation. They've been left with wealth, and they need help, and to work with that person is so much harder because often there's holes, there's gaps. It was just, oh my goodness, if we'd only met you 2 years ago. Right. So that's why it's so important, Reb. People, because we think it's not urgent. We know it's important, but we just keep putting it off. Right. And this is something that is not a difficult fix. I can walk through the steps, and I will in a minute, but it's not difficult to get a level of security in place to really change their financial future if this were to happen.
I want to just tie in verses that we were thinking about in regards to this discussion. In Ecclesiastes 4, it says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fail or fall, sorry, my glasses are not working, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. Again, if 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? Though one may be overpowered by another, 2 can withstand him. And a threefold cord is not quickly broken. I just actually, Dave suggested these verses for that. And I'm like, so perfect. For if they fall, one will lift up their companion. Yeah. I mean, there are times, and we've experienced it just in our cash flow management, David and I, in COVID, when the real estate market in Ottawa went crazy, I did all the managing of our money. And we're financial coaches, tell people all the time, do it together, have your financial date. Well, he was swamped with numbers from sun up to sundown. And I'm just like, I would send him memos. We'd talk if there was a decision to be made. But sometimes he was just not up to snuff. But because we've been doing it together for so long, not hard for me to do. not hard for that rhythm to take place. And sometimes there are, just not speaking on the investment side, but just on the normal cash flow side, there are couples who just don't do it together. Mm-hmm. And we at More Than Enough Coaching, we're trying to bring those together. Mm-hmm. So
and I think too, I mean, part of this is we talk about the household as one household, right? And so when, in your world, Tim, when you're talking about estate planning and managing wealth, it's the management of that as a single unit, I'll say, a household unit, right?
Yeah.
And then to recognize that, they're different people and different roles within that. So your team as the financial advisor team wants to work and say, hey, we're part of that. Yeah. Part of that whole structure to make sure that no matter what happens with the spouse, husband, wife, or even the kids, that there is a sense of plan in place. And I keep in my head going back to, those that fail to plan to fail, like totally. That old adage, right? Yeah. And we see that in our world, and I'm sure you see that in your world. And today we're really speaking to all of you who are like, resisting planning. Please don't resist. Just make the phone call to Tim, make the phone call to us. Start with that. It's a 2-second thing to do.
And if you don't know why we're doing this show, if you haven't caught it yet, we just encourage you to get knowledgeable together.
Yes.
Walk together. And sometimes that's hard. And we understand, because I was just sharing some of the stories we hear at More Than Enough. There are tangible, reasons why people aren't doing it together. And we actually understand, but we still can help you find a way. And it sounds like, Tim, there are some ideas that can help people get together. And I would say off the top, if you don't have a desire to do money with your spouse, you don't know about it, pray, ask the Lord. Start there. Yeah. Ask the Lord, even if you're not praying together yet, because couples do have trouble praying together as well. I'll just say that. I do know that as Christians, we do have troubles as often that comes up. But even on your own, start praying for it, and then start the conversation with your spouse and say, I think this is important. I don't really want to do it, but I'm feeling like this is important. And can we pray about it together? Because I'm praying about it now. Yeah. I would say that would be a great place to start.
Yeah. And the solution is not that difficult. And it doesn't take a lot of time. So that's the other part that people need to know. And also I want to point out, it's important regardless of age. People think, well, we're only in our 30s or our 40s. We got 50 years to go. My parents should be having this conversation in their 70s. But the reality is we lose spouses at any age. And it can be even more precarious at a young age because you got a big mortgage, a young family. You're so dependent on each other's incomes. A little bit of planning there and putting the right protection in place is not that expensive. And it completely changes your financial future. You do not want to go through this and have financial challenges on top of the emotional and the grieving and all of that. So 4 steps. I think they're simple. And if you have a good team around you, it can be offloaded fairly significantly. So the first is confirm that you'll be okay financially. Every couple needs to do this, or every single person, Dave, as you were mentioning, needs to know, okay, what's my financial future? What are my objectives? And how do I get there? What's my roadmap? Well, you need either find a financial advisor. I would recommend a certified Kingdom advisor. Go to kingdomadvisors.org, I would think, and look up who in your area has the credentials from a biblical perspective to guide you on biblical principles of finance and help you put the protection in place now and just help you work towards your financial future that you're looking for. So what we want to do is, will I be okay financially? And we have clients come to us all the time with this question, never thinking about estates. Right. They're thinking about, this is the future we want to have. How are we going to attain that? When
I'm not exchanging time for money in the sense of in a job, will I be okay?
Yeah. And we want to work towards that. We want to understand that. So that's the first part. And then what we want to look at is find a trusted advisor that both spouses are comfortable with. Now, I mentioned the CKA because you want an advisor that shares your Christian worldview, that can bring value, can work from your values and share your values in the counsel that they bring, because that's different than what you can find just with anyone in the industry. So I want people to have that alignment. But here's the other thing. It's important that both spouses can communicate and relate with that advisor. Mm-hmm. And often one spouse goes into that meeting, and the reason they don't want to be there is I tried that once. You guys just talked about all kinds of stuff I didn't even understand, let alone where it fit. So I'm not doing that again. So I want people to recognize that you're not dumb if you don't understand the language. It's the.
I love that.
Yeah.
You're not dumb if you don't understand the language.
People too often in our industry talk investmentese or whatever you want to call it, and I'm so frustrated when we have people that use that language. And so what you want to do is to be able to relate with your advisor and understand your advisor. And so if they're using language that you don't understand, tell them, hey, tell me that again. Break it down here. Yeah. And if they don't get it, then it's time to find an advisor that does. Mm-hmm. And so you need to be comfortable with them. And the litmus test on this would be, if I was on my own, this be the advisor that I would have?
Yeah, I love that, Tim, because I think I have this conversation quite a bit in our office too. And I often say it like this, your financial advisor should be somebody you know their kids, somebody that you can pick up the phone and say, hey, Tim, this just happened. And I need, can you help whatever the need is? And we're talking about, something catastrophic when we're today's conversation saying, hey, I'm splitting up with my spouse. I need help, or my spouse just fell off a ladder. He's not going to go back to work for 6 months. What do I do now? And you, to your point, both sides of the couple need to be able to pick up the phone and say, I need to talk to Tim now and by name. And Tim, how are your kids? And I need your help, right? Totally. That kind of conversation, right? So
one is work with that advisor or their team. How will I be okay financially? What do I have to do to become that way? Have a relationship that you're comfortable with for both spouses. Third would be both spouses need experience. That doesn't mean that they need to be the lead, both of them. They could be a tag along. Like Kathy and I, she has no interest in this. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this is my business. I have a little bit of interest in this. But when we meet with our financial advisor and we go through our financial plan that laid it out, Kathy's at that meeting. She has to be. There's a very high probability she will be managing our assets at the peak of those assets all by herself, because being a male, typically, I'm the first to go. So that means she needs to be ready. Same thing when we meet with our investment advisor. She's in those meetings. She doesn't, care for them, but she needs to know, where is our positioning? Why is it there? What are our interactions with the advisor? So that when I'm not at the table with her, the relationship's already there. And so this isn't about efficiency. Often it's kind of like, okay, you take the kids to soccer and I'm going to meet with our advisor. What's your end game? We always say to folks, right? This end game is about, if they were on their own, preparing them for that situation. We spend a lot of time preparing our assets for our spouse. The more important thing is prepare our spouse for our assets. I want Kathy to have her stress reduced as much as possible in a tragic situation, whether I die of old age or of an accident. And I want her to be able to say, I don't have to worry about money. There's a plan. I'm going to be okay. Now I just need to focus on me and our family and holding it together. for the next 2 or 3 years, because it's going to take a while to get through this. So we want that experience to know how the decisions were made. What's that background? You want the relationship with the advisor, with your advisor's team, and then they can guide you. You don't need all the answers, but you need to have that trust, that relationship, and some experience to go, yeah, I can trust these people. I do have a relationship with them. And then it's important to communicate, so both spouses are involved in that ongoing process, but this speaks more probably to the business owner or to a couple that have a really complicated situation, likely because of the level of the financial wealth that they have. I'll say one other thing though, when that spouse is actively involved with your financial management of your assets, they don't compete with you. They complete you. Mm-hmm. The two of you will make way better decisions than any one of you. We're a team. So let's work together on this. And in our business, Kathy is very aware of that business. She rarely steps in the office, but every night we're talking about staff, clients, the business, decisions, and the value that she brings. Mm-hmm. She doesn't work in the details. But the wisdom, the insight, the perspective, that's there. That's very valuable to me and to our firm. So on the communicate side, if your situation is complicated, here's the types of things that need to happen is you have a team beyond just your financial advisors. You've got accountants, you've got lawyers, you've got key staff. You've got other resources like maybe real estate agents and people like that. So your spouse needs to know who those people are. Mm-hmm. They need to know what your plan is. If I wasn't here today, what should happen to these various assets? Mm-hmm. I'll just give you one story here, just as an example. And with often our clients are business owners. And when we're doing complicated planning for them, we include part of the process is to look at those assets and put on paper the actual physical assets. So I've loaned money out to these couple people in terms of mortgages on their farm or their or whatever. We own that commercial spot down there in that city or whatever. We have our investment portfolio. We've got our own company. We may have a holding company, and so we'll list all those assets. Then we'll go through with both spouses. If only one spouse was here and it wasn't the active spouse, what's the recommendation? Sell that piece of property. As soon as that mortgage comes due for renewal, you want to be out of that. And so they're given permission, but they're given guidance because often we'll see, I don't know what to do. And so, he really, this is his best friend that he did, it's like, there's that guilt and all this stuff. And it's hard to kind of look at it from a financial perspective if that spouse was there, they'd say, I don't care if he's my friend. It doesn't make sense for you on your own to be involved in that. So what's the asset? What should we do? And then who do I need for help for that? Here's the real estate person that you would use to sell that. Or here's, you already know the banker so that there's a relationship there. So the lawyer, those kinds of things.
These discussions are also about relationship with the people in the community. And if I don't know who Dave would recommend, because we talk about this for our own business, what happens if something happened to you? And then we've got
happens? We use the example. What happens if I couldn't talk?
Yeah.
Okay,
that
so
does it.
we're in trouble because guess what? My voice is actually a big part of being doing my business.
So that and it does change. You don't just decide 10 years ago.
Oh, right? Totally. Yeah,
If we go back to the 10 years ago, I'm like, well, that doesn't hold true anymore. Yes. Okay, let's reevaluate in 2026. What would I do? I feel more confident now because I know our business a bit better, just speaking from our personal experience and we talk about it enough on the fly. But if you aren't, doing that.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in because I love the what a plan is, the definition of a plan. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so when you make a plan, it's not like you say, okay, plan, set, go, and then set it and forget it. That doesn't happen in the area of finance. It doesn't happen in cash flow management. It doesn't happen in your world, right? And so we go, wait a minute, I got a plan. Yep. So we all communicate the plan. We know we work together. Yes, there is a process there. But as Tim, you said, having a team come around you and guide you through that process, you don't have to do it alone. We both do this hundreds of times a year, so we can help guide you through what that plan looks like. But then we want to revisit the plan. We want to go back and say, all right, 5 years ago, if I lost my voice, who would replace me in this seat?
Yes.
And Reb had a name and she knew the person she would call. 5 years later, she's not calling that same person, right? And so revisiting that plan and going beginning, middle, and an end. And visiting in the middle. And we only have a few minutes left. I'm going to give you the last word, Tim.
So just on that, we would typically want to update that list annually. So that, has anything changed? Second thing is, if you own a business, you probably have key employees. They need to, there has to be a plan. Who's going to step in and run the business till it can be sold or whatever's going to happen to it. So you have a plan. Who's going to institute that plan? How are they going to be paid to do that? And are they willing to do that? So those are all key factors. I just want to wrap up here and spend the last minute or so about that widow or widower. I want to speak to you if you're in that situation right now and this has happened to you and it's unexpected and you're not in a position that you want to be in. First off, we are so sorry for what you're going through. I can't begin to imagine the level of your loss. But what we're looking at is first thing would be you've not lost your Heavenly Father, and He knows what you're going through, and He's able to walk with you through such dark and difficult times. Another thing would be to be aware of something called widow brain or widower brain, where it's that brain fog. You're going to go through that. You're going to forget stuff. You're going to I heard it, but I didn't hear it. Don't make any major decisions for the first 18 to 24 months if you can avoid that. Another thing is you're simply in that brain fog area. You're just trying to survive. Just get me through the next hour, the next 10 minutes, the next day. Take a trusted friend to any meetings that you have in terms of financial meetings. Think of it like an elderly person where they're going to want help with them at the medical appointments, right? They're going to hear things, they're going to remember things. Take a financial notebook to those meetings and get connected with other people in your situation, and find a good grief counselor to process this with. So, this is an important situation. It's urgent, and it's not that difficult to get the plans in place to change your financial future.
Well, thanks so much, Tim, for joining us. Again, a wealth of information, a wealth of things that we can follow up on. I just want to say thank you for sponsoring today's show as well.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that. And thank you for joining us, and join us next week when we talk money.
Let's Talk Money is a division of More Than Enough Financial Fitness, where God is transforming hearts and bringing hope for today and freedom for tomorrow. For more information or to comment on today's show, please visit morethanenough.ca.